Welcome back, dear listeners, to the most wonderful time of the year for us here on Fright or Flight, the podcast where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. I'm Jumpscare Jer and/or Geraldine, the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast.
Today, you might notice that we're wearing costumes. We've never done that before. You want to tell them why?
It's because, like you said, Geraldine, it's the most special time of the year. And to celebrate Halloween, we're covering a film set in Halloween, and we're dressing the part. You as the Joker from Batman, and me as Kermit from the Muppets.
That's absolutely not true, but the other part is, but we're talking about a movie.
We're talking about Trick or Treat today. And for audio listeners, if you guys want to look at our faces, go to the YouTube feed, because we're both wearing makeup.
We're both wearing makeup.
Professionally done by professionals. And Geraldine, she's actually Billy the Puppet from the Saw franchise.
Which we just
covered. And I am Shrek from the Shrek franchise that we will cover later on down the road.
I kind of wish they would turn those into horror movies. That would be kind of funny.
Are they not already?
No.
Isn't it like actually a dystopian world? And like that's our future, like talking donkeys and all this?
I don't know. But anyway, now I got to ask you. What did you think of Trick or Treat?
This movie really surprised me.
Okay.
First of all, in title, completely omitting a letter. That's bold. That's brave. I also thought it was really interesting. Like I'm not very familiar with Sam Hain or the director of this movie, Michael Dougherty, but I learned that, like, to me, it appears to me from the intro that correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a bunch of short stories that were previously existing, like comic books, and then transitioned and combined them into one film. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. And we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later today. But yeah, my first run through with this movie was really funny because it came out in 2007, as you're aware. And we talked about 2007 and the Saw franchise. We did like this little segment where we were doing like the time landscape of the year. I was gonna say timeline. I don't know why I said that. Weird. Anyway, and at that time, 300, the movie came out. And when I watched that movie growing up, apart from all of the bad scenes and stuff, if you remember when you have a DVD, they typically have previews of other films on the DVDs, which is always really fun. It feels like an ancient concept. I don't know if they still do it. Hopefully they do. I haven't watched a DVD in a long time.
Well, Best Buy is going to stop selling them, apparently. That just came out last week. No more DVDs at Best
Guys,
Buy.
that makes me nervous because the old person in me, I like to own things as like the security of owning it, because I don't want everything to be streaming, because a lot of movies don't get made into things anymore, like DVDs and stuff, like hard copies.
Yeah, which frustrates me because I'm a huge fan of bonus features.
Me too.
Or commentary, like director commentary, things like that. And you don't get that on Netflix.
You don't get that access, and it's really sad because it's so fun. But anyway, apart from that, I watched 300 growing up on DVD. This was part of the DVD like previews. So I got to see this preview like a long time ago, and I thought, wow, that movie looks really cool. And then a few years later, because it came out straight to DVD. It never had a theater release. Last year, he re-released it in theaters.
Sam Hain.
No, Michael Dougherty re-released it in theaters. Not re-released it. I say that lightly. He released it for the first time in theaters, which was really fun. It was really special to see that movie.
Did you get
on
to
the big screen.
participate?
I did get to participate.
That's awesome.
I went with my boyfriend and my mother and my bonus father. He doesn't like to be called stepfather, so he's my bonus father.
That's very fascinating. We just shot something in your parents' house, and they have a lot of paraphernalia of Trick or Treat.
Collectibles. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I was surprised.
We're a big fan of the movie.
A lot of Sam Hain over there.
You're gonna kill me. It's so good. The movie was so fun. So we got to see it on the big screen for the first time. It was really, really good. But also, Michael Dougherty is planning to release a Trick or Treat 2 at some point in the future.
Oh, that's
fun.
But
I think it's going to be a different anthology. I have theories. We'll definitely talk about it more whenever we get into it. I have ideas, hopes, wants, and dreams for it, but I've been wanting a sequel for this movie ever since I saw it because it was so good.
And it was a family affair. Like like you got into it, and so did the rest of your family.
Mm-hmm. We all did, and we all thought it was a perfect encapsulation of what you would like imagine Halloween to
Now, could you tell me, like, I'm now familiar with this. I just went to Spirit Halloween.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of costumes for Sam Hain.
Yeah.
And I want to know
Stop calling it
I want to know, like, where does Trick or Treat land in the landscape of, like, horror films? Like, is it something that's, like, widely known, or is it more of a niche film?
It used to be niche, but over the past few years, it's gained a lot more popularity, which is why I think he re-released it in theaters to kind of test the waters to see if it would be worth doing a
that's
Trick or Treat
fascinating,
sequel. And I hope that it delivered. We definitely went out to see it because we want to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
So Michael Dougherty, please release Trick or Treat 2. I will help you with it. I don't care. I love it. So I think that that's what happened, and it's definitely gained a lot of popularity over the years, which I love because that means we will probably get more from that universe because I love Sam. He's iconic and he's cute. But ultimately, how do you feel about Halloween?
Well, Geraldine, Halloween, well, despite me not being a particular fan of horror films and just in general, I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. I think something about being Mexican, like there is, a lot of us are Catholic. There is something Gothic in nature about our culture a lot. Even just about death. I mean, this is a lot more realistic, but the cartels, there's a lot of death in Mexico. And so something about that does bring us closer to the concept of death and just into darker things, I think, in general. So I've always enjoyed Halloween. I love the spirit. I love October, the weather, the season. So I'm a huge fan of Halloween. I've never been super participatory and dressing up. I've always been a really shy, introverted person. But I'm doing it a little more now as an adult. As
you can see at home. For the people actually watching the YouTube video, you can see.
Yes, I have green makeup on.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of love put into this film because of the Halloween nature. I feel like you can really feel the holiday jumping off the screen. So here are some clips that I find enjoyable related to Michael Dougherty and his love for Halloween and the environment that was on the set of Trick or Treat.
Halloween is Mike's favorite day of the year, and I think he's grown concerned that over the decades, people have forgotten the origins of Halloween and what it's really about as a holiday.
Since I kind of grew up obsessed with the holiday, I did a lot of homework, and you find out why you trick-or-treat, why you get dressed up, and there are very creepy origins to a lot of the traditions that we take for granted.
Michael wanted everybody to become steeped in the lore of Halloween, where it came from.
Wait. These characters are each experiencing a different facet of Halloween night and the different types of creatures that exist and walk around on Halloween night.
The idea of tricking and pranking probably does come from those early beliefs in the Celtic mythologies of mischievous, nasty fairies. They would do things like kidnap or trick innocent human beings on Halloween night.
Those otherworldly pranksters would spot a kindred spirit in filmmaker Michael Dougherty.
Michael Dougherty is a scheming, mean director who likes to pull practical jokes at all times.
One night, I'm up rather late, and my doorbell is ringing incessantly at 3:30 in the morning. And I freaked out, so I didn't answer the door. And in the morning, I woke up to find a basket with a baby doll covered in blood and blankets, and a note that looked like it was written by a psychotic that said, "Please take care of my baby Jojo." My first thought was, Dougherty did this.
He's the Derek Jeter of pranks. I said, I'm not doing it! God damn it, you got me! You saw him. You saw him. These are the conditions I'm working under.
Well, it sounds like Michael Dougherty, he's a menace.
I know, I love it.
Okay, it's super interesting to hear, too, because now that I hear that, it does really remind me of the film, and like a character explicitly says that, like people have forgotten about Halloween and like why it's celebrated in the first place. So it like you said, I do feel like it does come from like a passionate heart, somebody who actually cares about this.
I think so as well, and I think it's really, really fun because, I mean, through every story that you get to encounter, you get to see so much surrounding the holiday, and like there are different like layers to every story as well. Some of the stories are a little bit sadder than others, and we'll definitely get into that for sure. But yeah, how did you like the layout of the film?
I definitely found it interesting. It reminded me a lot of an animated film called Hoodwinked. Because similarly, you see things framed through different perspectives throughout the film, and I think that is kind of satisfying. To be honest, is you kind of because I think some films I think of a similar nature to this, where they tell several stories. I'm not a big fan of because the stories either won't intertwine with each other at all, or if they do, it's done so linearly that it's not intriguing, and it's just like, oh, you can tell they forced cut this together to make it work into one story. Whereas this, I feel like one made you think about like, oh, that's that character from that thing, or like, and just made you guess like, oh, when is this happening? That I feel like the way they did it was they nailed it.
What was your favorite story out of the 4?
My favorite story, if I had to pick one, so here, can you tell me what the 4 are?
Yeah, I can tell you what the 4 are. I'll actually tell you there is like a layout to the stories as well. Early in the film, a news broadcast describes Halloween festivities in this little town in Ohio where Trick or Treat takes place. The reporter says werewolves, zombies, and demons of every variety have descended on the normally sleepy town, which pinpoints what's going to happen in just about every segment of the film. He also explains the 4 segments as like different representations of the age as we experience Halloween as we grow up. So the first one's about Halloween when you're still young enough to rely on your parents for everything. With that being the young boy and his dad, this Principal Wilkins and Charlie. Not Charlie. No, I think that is Charlie. That's his son's name. And they're carving pumpkins. And the little boy is like wanting to go trick-or-treating and wants to go with his dad to this parade. And it's just like a lot of relying on the dad, and the dad's like tired of it, I guess. So it's also different to see that from the perspective of the father, which was really comical. I did enjoy like the layer of comedy to it as well.
That is something I struggled with. I think we obviously, the whole point of the podcast, we come from different backgrounds, and I had a really hard time with the tone of the film. Because what I'm used to is if it's scary, or if it's funny, it's funny. And where it came harshest was with the kids, because I've never seen a movie before really that comes like this harsh with children.
I love it.
And so my response to that is like, oh, this is like supposed to be awful and scary. So like, when they play off a joke of like, oh, like it's some kid's head spinning or whatever, it doesn't. I have a hard time finding like a positive emotional response to it, I suppose.
I understand that.
I guess it's hard for me to find the humor in it, but
I think it's just
part
because
of
it's
that
just
is
so twisted.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
which is why I love it. I don't know. I think that it's just like you're so shocked by what you see.
And just from knowing you, I have seen like other things of a similar nature. Like I don't remember what it is, but I remember like years ago you showed me a movie, and it was a very similar thing. It was like these like a lower budget situation with like children, and they're fending off some creature of some sort or some villain, and it does have the same kind of tone where it's like twisted, but it's not like dark and serious like Saw. There is like some levity to it, despite it still being like death, guts, and blood.
Yeah, I think that there's also like this lightheartedness that they're treading on, which is kind of hard to do, but I think that Michael Dougherty really does it well. And I think that also is a testament to the cast that he has, which he has an amazing cast. I don't know if if you recognized any of the people in the movie.
I thought that the gentleman that played Principal Wilkins looked a lot like Steve Colbert.
He kind of does, yeah.
I thought that. I know the lady who played like the Red Riding Hood. She looked familiar, and I think Bailey looked it up because she coined her, and I think where do we recognize her from?
She's in the X-Men films.
That's what it was. She was Rogue,
and True Blood.
I will say her acting is better in this movie than it was in the X-Men movies.
Oh yeah, by a landslide.
Yeah, but she definitely has a familiar face.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, talking back about the layout of the film, though, the second story is about Halloween when you're just old enough to go like trick or treating, but you're more interested in causing trouble. The third story where it weaves in and out of the others, is about Halloween in her 20s, and it's all about the risque costumes, hooking up, passion, that kind of thing. The final segment is about the old man, Halloween when you're too old to enjoy the holiday, an age none of us will hopefully ever reach, lest we meet the fate of Mr. Krieg. So we have 4 different stories, one with the child in the beginning relying on his dad, the second one, and also Charlie, but he's kind of the second story. Not Charlie, I don't know what his fucking name is. The kid who was like knocking over all the pumpkins, being a little shithead. Like that story intertwined with the first story, and the scary thing about it is like the rules of Halloween that kind of loom over it, which I love that was like a cool thing that they intertwined. I wasn't expecting that whenever I first watched it, but growing up, it like put another like fear in my head. I'm like, oh man, what if people actually kind of do this kind of thing? I mean, of course you hear about it, but you never like see it.
Something I hadn't mentioned is just that when I knew we were going to do this movie, and I'd never seen it before, no clue whatever. And I've seen the little Sam Hain guy around with a pumpkin sack on his head or whatever, and he looks like a cute little fella.
He's so
right?
cute.
If you guys are watching the video, we have several little fellas here on our table from the film, and I thought this was a children's movie. like I thought this was like a Halloween movie for kids. It's just there's so many kids, and the movie starts off that way, and like quickly there's like the first couple that you see. They just finished Halloween. The wife is obviously a little bit of a, I don't know, like not a fan of Halloween. She even says, I hate Halloween.
That's actually the character that you heard screaming and talking about how terrible of a director Michael Dougherty is. Yeah. She's the one who got scared. Well,
her character is a, big time Halloween Grinch. And I think saying I hate Halloween in this movie is like a death sentence almost most of the time.
Yeah.
And when I realized, this is an adult film, is when she's complaining about Halloween, and she's like, I'll go put it up. You go on and put on the tape, right?
Yeah.
And he goes into his room, and of course the tape is porn.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't a kid's movie.
Not at all.
No, it's definitely for adults.
Definitely for adults. But like, isn't that fun? Like that whole idea that you think that it's like you totally had one different
conception of it.
Yeah. And then when you went in, were you like pleased by it at least?
Kind of in a way. You asked me earlier which of the 4 stories that I like the most, and I think the one with the lady from the X-Men, I think that's the most fascinating for me for a few different reasons. One, I think part of the reason is just that it's in my age. You said 20s. I'm in my 20s. And so maybe that's why it's a little more appealing to me. I'm not of the variety of like hookup culture, or, I just said that I just started wearing, being more into the costumes and stuff. So it's not necessarily that aspect. It's just like I'm around that more. So that's appealing to me. And also their story is just about like, I feel this was really fascinating, just about being a woman during Halloween, and like, there was an air of sexuality that is throughout the whole story, but it threw me off. Like, it gives you a twist.
Yeah.
And we just covered the Saw franchise. I love a good twist.
Right.
Did not see it coming.
I didn't either when I first saw it. But then they also play the iconic, Marilyn Manson cover of "Sweet Dreams" by the Eurythmics. Yeah. And it's like,
which is a version I originally heard. I thought I heard the Marilyn Manson one first and way more before I the only reason I know about the original song is because it's on an episode of Everybody Hates Chris that I came across when I was in high school.
Crazy, because I absolutely love the story. It's probably my number 1 story out of all of the stories.
Favorite one.
It's just so good. And then like the fact that like I've seen so many different like horror stories about like the mythical creatures, fantastical creatures of like werewolves, vampires, that kind of thing. They all have their different takes on it. I thought this take was probably the coolest take I've ever seen on a werewolf.
I really enjoyed the props. It looked like they did a lot of practical stuff there.
Oh, they did. I thought
that was really neat.
It was a mixture of animatronic, like practical makeup, like actual like bodysuit, and then I can't remember. I think it does like actual makeup as well. And of course they did have some CGI in here because it's kind of hard to do things without that.
Yeah, there was a lot of CGI for the part with the old man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that you'd be really shocked. I do have some clips about Sam as a character as well. Not only I didn't include this part, but they did include a stunt double as well, and she was a like very short gymnast. But like she was actually like the stunt person for the character. They actually had a costume. It was mostly practical.
That's
and
really
that's
cool.
what they wanted for that character. But I'll play those clips for you in just a moment. But about the 4 stories, it's kind of like Dougherty kind of talks about it in this clip that we're about to play.
The film has kind of been a personal passion project for a really long time because it was my first screenplay. I kind of cheated. I took 4 short stories that I had in the back of my mind and put them together and said, look, it's my horror anthology film. I realized that there was a fun way of kind of connecting the lives of all these people and then putting them all in the same small town.
I try to describe it as Crash meets Creep Show, and he plays with time in a way that we haven't seen in a movie like this.
I wanted to create a horror film where anybody could be the bad guy. And even the bad guy that you think is your main villain turns out is getting trumped by something even bigger and meaner.
This was the Halloween that I always wished I had as a kid. I always wished that something incredibly crazy, unique would happen. Something that I could tell all my friends the next day at school. And I got to do that in this movie.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a person who's also interested in like screenwriting and you know, writing short stories, that's super fascinating. I'm glad he got that opportunity to combine all these things, you know.
I also don't, like, he says he cheated, and I know he says that in, like, a light way, but also, like, I don't think that's cheating.
No, especially when you're coming up with it yourself. Like, it's all original material, apparently.
Right. So what did you think ultimately? Because, like, not only do we have all these, like, different stories going on, but we have this character that we have on the table, Sam. He's in every story.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I noticed him around. I didn't quite know what to make of him. Like, I was like, what kind of involvement is going to have in this? What I will say is I think the character is very cute.
He is
I
cute.
love his pumpkin sack of a head. However, I will say he should have kept it on the whole movie. Once he took that thing off, I was like, man, like, I don't know, maybe I should delete this. Maybe I won't watch the rest of it.
I actually thought he looked a little bit cuter with the mask off.
I love
personally.
it.
He looks like a gremlin a little bit.
He looks like an alien to me.
He's like a little pumpkin alien baby. I love him.
Yeah. Very, I mean, you know, that's very unique. I don't think I've ever seen that before, so.
Right. Here are some clips about the character Sam, how he came to be, and why Michael decided to use him.
Haunting each storyline in Trick or Treat is a figure that may be the most lethal jack-o'-lantern ever created. A demonic protector of Halloween rituals, simply known as Sam.
And he's the one who really puts down the rules for Halloween. He's the enforcer.
The Sam character is definitely Mike's baby. It's something that he's loved and nurtured for a long time.
Sam started as a little cartoon drawing. I was at NYU at the time doing animation. It came time to put together your ideas for your senior thesis film. And I just drew this kind of creepy trick-or-treater. It felt more of like an alter ego of myself at the time. And I did this short film called Season of Greetings, so he became the central character in that short film.
The character sort of matured or developed over the years to become the Sam that we have in this film.
My rationale with Sam is that every holiday has got a cool mascot. Halloween is the only one that didn't have something. There's a lot of iconic images, but there wasn't just that one mascot character. But going back and looking at the history of the holiday, and old postcards and wooden engravings, the one image that constantly popped up was a little pumpkin-headed guy. And so for me, Sam was the opportunity to kind of create some kind of mascot for the holiday. The spelling of the holiday is S-A-M-H-A-I-N, according to its Celtic roots. Now, it's correctly pronounced Samhain, so it's a silent M. But Sam is just a perfect little name for it.
Okay, I really like the idea of, we have the Easter Bunny, we got Santa Claus.
Right?
And to have, Sam Hain as like the mascot for Halloween, I actually really like that. And I think, one, he does represent the values apparently, and they discuss throughout the film, always check your candy and all these other rules. But also he just looks very, I could see him like a little like menace, something that's very childish too. I think that's, representative of Halloween in a lot of ways.
I'm so glad you said that, because in this next clip, you'll hear him talking about why they chose like the way they chose for the like practical effects, because he was actually played by an actual child.
Yeah, I saw that he was credited with the same kid that we see at the beginning of the movie, kind of picking on those other girls.
Yeah, so here in like this next clip, you will hear about it. It's really cool.
Having come from animation, it was immensely helpful preparing for this. If you look at his live action incarnation and the original doodle I did of him as a cartoon character, it's there's hardly any difference. Sam is actually being played by a 7-year-old kid named Quinn Lord, who's amazing and creepy, but adorable. I was dead set on using an actual kid because I wanted him to feel like a kid until that mask came off. And kids have a very different way of moving and running.
This is a demon. He was born in a pumpkin patch. And it kills people if they don't actually listen to Halloween. He goes towards them and...
Sam doesn't have like human like blood or anything like bones, or it's just he's a sack of pumpkin guts.
Well, he has pumpkin guts. Pumpkin inside.
I did one drawing of Sam without the mask, I think in 2002, and I gave that design to Brian Burns, my concept artist. And I said, you know, if you took a fetus skull and a pumpkin and merged them together, like what would that look like?
Sam's final look, and I would say Mike's style overall, is horrifying but somehow innocent at the same time. Something that somehow captures a bit of childhood playfulness, but can be very dreadful and horrific at the same time.
And honestly, I feel like Sam is a part of me because to me, he's like that mischievous, juvenile trick-or-treater that never went away. Like he's my inner child, my demonic inner child.
But yeah, I do like the idea of him being like this demonic little child, just because, I mean, like, I think the spirit of Halloween is mostly like a childish thing. I mean, we grow onto it as like most of it is like trick-or-treating. I mean, this movie is called Trick or Treat, and like you said, he has rules. Do you know what is his like list of rules?
He does have a whole list of rules. There's like 8 of them. I actually put them in our Discord, but I will read them out loud. His rules of Halloween is always wear a costume, always pass out treats to trick-or-treaters, never blow out a jack-o'-lantern before midnight, always check your candy, always respect the dead, never take down your decorations before November 1st, never hurt the innocent, and that's it.
So these are all pretty, you know, while Sam is a mischievous character, these rules are generally like, they're not bad rules to have.
They're not bad rules to have. Every single one of them does get broken, though, in this movie, if you didn't notice. There are people who take off their costume, take down decorations before, so that's the beginning of the movie.
When are you allowed to take off your costume?
I mean, I wear my costume on Halloween, but like I don't know that it also depends on what time I get home on Halloween, because sometimes if I'm out with my friends or out doing events, anything like that, sometimes I might get home on November 1st, like midnight, you know.
So what do you think was the rule that the first lady broke in the movie?
Well, first of all, she blew out her jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
That was the first thing she did wrong. And then she started taking off her costume, and then she started taking out all her decorations.
Oh, so she broke a lot of rules.
She broke a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, this bitch.
Yeah.
And then he goes after her. What did you think of her death?
I didn't know what was going on. It was very kind of hard to manage. I did get spooked by Sam coming out of the sheets. So that definitely gave me a scare. And then when they got kind of wrapped up inside of that white sheet and somebody got hurt, I was like, I didn't know if it was the attacker who getting hurt or the attackee getting hurt.
Yeah. And then what do you think about the husband, like waking up? Of course, he wakes up to the porn going off and you're like, okay, guy. And then he's like, oh, where's my wife? I accidentally fell asleep. What a stupid little dummy head. And then he wakes up and he goes to look for his wife. She's nowhere to be found. And he's like, weird about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what happens there? I mean, you make a police report to the local PD.
Right.
And, you know, what do you say? Even, you know, she has a lollipop in her mouth.
I mean, that clearly, if you watch true crime, clearly the husband did it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that looks so crazy. It was so epic, though.
It was also cool to see that transition into like the animated version of it, like the cartoon that we see in the intro.
Right? That was beautifully done. Like, it was so satisfying. And like, I want to see all of this like in the comic book form. I believe my mom possibly owns the comic book if there was one that was fully made. Right. But it's just so cool. Like the whole idea of like the transition there.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it was really fun. And we get to see a couple more of those transitions throughout the film. But yes, a lot of these things get broken in the very beginning, like from so many characters. Respecting the dead. Principal Wilkins. Would you want him as a principal?
You know, I had so what's his deal? Is it Do you think he's like a serial child killer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a good cover, I suppose. I mean, if you're a principal at school, you got a lot of victims to work from.
That's true. But it's like, who hurt you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he also has his child, which I don't know if you, like, whenever I was watching that scene. That's where it comes
from, right? His resentment for his own child, so he takes it on all these other kids.
I feel like it's got to be, like, in my brain, I'm thinking generational.
Now, I do relate a lot to Principal Wilkins as far as, like, man, these goddamn kids,
True.
They don't know where to, they got to be put in their place sometimes.
Yeah, they're kind of assholes.
Yeah, this curly-headed guy, he was pretty much like a troublesome kid. Really rude. I mean, he spent so much time working on a pumpkin, and he's just gonna knock it over, throw it onto the ground. Come on, kid.
He's like, yeet.
Yeah, Bailey had a really hard time watching the scene when he gets given candy
by
Principal Wilkins.
Okay, I have emetophobia, which is a phobia of throwing up.
Totally get it.
There's a lot of throwing up here.
There's a lot of throwing up, and my problem is, okay, I don't have like a severe like phobia or anything, so if it's like a short scene and it's obviously fake throw up and it's just very fakey and just for like humor value, that's one thing. That's in a lot of movies. I don't like it, but it's not going to set me off. But I didn't watch this scene because I knew I wouldn't be able to watch it, but the sound that it makes is so prolonged and so realistic to what vomiting sounds like, at least for me. I couldn't handle it. I started gagging.
Very visceral scene, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of noises, and he just
really
wouldn't
tough.
stop throwing up.
Yeah, and the behind the scenes, they had a tube, so that was real. It was like practical, but they also obviously had to do some layering of the video and
I
stuff.
wasn't quite sure if like the principal, was this an accident? Like, was it because he starts asking him a few questions, like, and starts like kind of being like a little caring, like, oh, come here or whatever. So why was it obvious to you that it was? Bailey, what do you think? Was it obvious to you?
He has like this menacing face. He's
Does
like,
he? No, I think he has a very like Michael Cera kind of air to him, like kind of like bumbling buffoon, kind of energy, in my opinion.
You would have gotten got then. You would have taken candy from this man.
See, I didn't go trick-or-treating.
You never went trick-or-treating growing up?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I was going to ask you a question. Like, did you have like a favorite costume growing up? Did you ever dress up for Halloween?
No, I didn't dress up until I've been an adult, like I said, in the last few years.
You're breaking Geraldine's heart right now.
You need to heal that part of you.
I just never had that opportunity. Like, it's just, I think something about being an immigrant and like having a family who is a little, like, I never slept over at a friend's house. A lot of things that I think are typical, like American culture things, because of me being an immigrant and also me being so shy and introverted, I never got the chance to participate.
That's absolutely crazy.
And it's like my parents, they only spoke Spanish.
Okay.
So if like they were to take me trick-or-treating, it's I don't know, there's like a barrier.
How do you say trick-or-treat in Spanish?
I don't know. I don't even know if there is a word for trick-or-treat.
We gotta find out.
I mean, they don't really celebrate Halloween in Mexico at all, right?
That's true. Isn't it Day of the
Dia
Dead?
de los Muertos in November, but that's completely different to Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, it's still really cool. I think that holiday is dope as hell.
Yeah. I mean, and growing, I grew up here in the States, so I definitely saw it on TV, saw it on the specials or whatever. But there's a lot of things that I always felt like, oh, that's for other people, it's not for me. You know what I mean? Not because I don't want to participate, but because I never felt like I got the opportunity. So I never even asked my parents about it.
That's so sad. Oh my God. Did you ever get to celebrate like El Dia de los Muertos?
Not here in Tennessee. It's not a popular celebration. In California, San Diego, huge parade. It's a whole big thing. There's a big Latin population in San Diego, but that's what it is here in the States. It's just like certain parts. But if there isn't like a huge Latin population to kind of represent it, then it doesn't happen as often. Especially, here in the South, a lot of people are judgy and, might not be as appreciative of a different culture.
Oh my God. Yeah. Growing up in the Bible Belt, me saying I love Halloween, other kids would literally be like, you're a Satan worshiper. You love the devil.
Literally. And if you watch Harry Potter, God forbid, oh my God, you are sacrilege.
Now, I feel like, we see trick-or-treaters in this movie, Trick or Treat. Me and Bailey just watched Hocus Pocus.
Love that movie.
Which is one of our favorite films every Halloween season. And in that, you do see that. You see like a town street set in Boston. So all these houses are next to each other. They all have fences, and kids just walk down the sidewalk going from house to house. But nowadays, I feel like it feels awkward to go trick-or-treating. It's kind of like a confusing thing. Like you go out and you're like, okay, so where are we supposed to go? The lights aren't on in the neighborhood, just like there's
really
no like street lights on.
It really depends on your neighborhood.
And that visual that we get, like I said, of those trick-or-treaters, like as far, I've never experienced that. Like I've never gone out, like, you know, with my little brother and it be like that. Like there's barely any sidewalks where we live to begin with. It's like you're walking on the side of the road and it's kind of like, oh, where do we go? I don't know. Should we drive somewhere else? You know, and it's not this, I wish it was more like it is in the movies. That looks like a lot of fun.
I agree. Well, growing up, it was like that.
It was like that.
Like these past few years, they've been, I don't know, it's really weird for children. And I feel bad for like generations growing up because they're like, oh no, we can't do it on this day. We have to do it on this day.
Yeah, and
they try to move Halloween.
All that changed. We're in like a unique situation here where all of us at our age, it was right when we became like teenagers and stopped trick-or-treating when trunk-or-treat happened. And trunk or treat was specifically made to make parents feel like it was safer and also, in my opinion, to make them feel like they don't have to do as much work, which makes sense.
I want a Halloween rebirth. And I also want adults to feel like it's okay to also trick or treat.
Me
Please.
too.
I want to trick or treat again. I love the joy of trick or treating, like running to houses. Like, it's so fun.
Yeah, I like that idea too, but I mean, people are haters. You know, people hate Disney adults. They're like, oh, why are they in line? Like, I have 5 kids with me, and this 20-something-year-old couple is trying to go on the ride. This is Disney World. Like, it's the same thing with trick or treating. I can see parents going like,
listen,
this candy's for kids. You're a grown adult.
Listen, I have a niece that I love very, very much, but also, fuck them kids. I don't care. It's Halloween, and Halloween's for everyone.
I'm with you.
For everyone. You don't get to just stake your claim because you have kids. We're all equally important. I'm sorry.
Do you like handing out candy on Halloween?
I do like handing out candy, but I also like receiving candy. But like this movie instills that fear again. Like growing up, I remember our parents had to like individually go through all of our candy. They were so scared of that. And I remember being so scared to eat Pop Rocks because you heard that people would put like drugs in your Pop Rocks and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so scary.
It was the most annoying thing as a kid because you would go home and you'd have this big bag of candy and then your parents are like, okay.
You're like,
Yeah, I got to keep it from you for at least an hour. I got to inspect every single piece of candy in here.
They made their own candy for the movie. This is a Holly Ho bar. It's a prop from Spirit and it opens up and it's got a razor.
Oh, so it's a reference to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cool. Love it.
But is that, you know, there was a whole thing with like the satanic panic and you know, the 80s.
But people were doing that. But I mean, you just didn't hear about it enough or you didn't see it happen.
So the candy thing was something, people were putting like razors in the candy, or was that all just, you know, made up?
I think it was just like sick adults that wanted to hurt kids, but I don't think it was like...
Because, you know, now I remember when I was growing up, the whole thing was like putting drugs in the candy.
It was both.
Who would spend money on hard-earned drugs in their mind and then put it in children's candy? I don't know.
I think a good bit of it was made up. You know, I think a good bit of it was like sensationalizing something to put the fear in people or whatever.
Because they probably think Halloween
there's a TikTok that got really popular a couple of years ago where it's some lady saying, these witches are putting curses on your kids' candy. They hex the candy and Satan and all of this stuff so people would stop trick-or-treating. I think a lot of it is harbored by the Bible Belt, just not liking Halloween.
Good, give me all the candy, bitch. I don't care. So what did you guys think about the characters in this movie? Like, do you think that like the unlikable ones get a good enough justice? Because like one story in particular that really like that I hate. Well, there's 2 stories in particular that are like linked together. It's the Mr. Krieg story where you find out later that he's the bus driver who like was going to kill these kids. Like it just makes me so mad, but also it makes
I'm kind of sympathetic with him.
Like, you are?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
well, in my eyes, I don't really understand exactly where the story was meant to go. Like, was he going to take them off the cliff, or did that just happen to happen? Like,
I don't know.
My brain thinks he was going to poison the kids.
I don't think so, because it's weird how, if that was the case, right? If he wanted the kids to die, then why, when the kid who was driving the bus, why did he try to get the kid to stop driving the bus? Because he could have realistically just been like, hopped out of the bus and let all the kids die. But he tried to stop them. So I think maybe he wasn't necessarily going to do that. But I don't know what he was going to do.
Something about, you said likable characters or whatever. I remember you telling Bailey last time we were around before we watched the film that, I think you'll like it, right?
Yeah.
And then while we were watching the film, when we started seeing the group of teens gather around, like for, the dead kids who drove off the cliff or whatever, Bailey, once a certain character was introduced, she was like, this is why Geraldine, I thought I would like this. And it's because of the character Rhonda.
Rhonda is so lovable, and that's kind of what I want to see her come back and Trick or Treat too. I don't know if they ever will, but that's my big want, is for Michael Dougherty to show her as an adult, because like Sam has this, like, I don't know, they have like this strange understanding because she didn't do anything wrong. They like bullied her and they picked on her, and she was so sweet and so like naive, and I just hate that. And obviously the revenge was so sweet, so sweet.
I think it's super interesting. This movie was made or was released in 2007.
Yeah.
And Rhonda, I assume that you caught onto it too, is clearly like autistic coded. And it makes me think all the time. Like, obviously now we have a lot of, like, there's autistic characters are huge right now, between like Sheldon, young Sheldon, that doctor show, I can't remember the name of right now.
Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor. So like that is like a trope, right? But I wonder, like in 2007, I feel like the autism was like represented well. So when the or not just well, but just like, I don't know, like to a level where I can identify it. And I wonder, were the writers and directors back then, did they know that? Like, were they thinking of, okay, let's make her like autistic, or were they thinking like, oh, this is the weird kid, and that just kind of falls in the same column?
No, I think they knew, because specifically the kids, before they meet up with her, and how you know that they're going to bully her, is they refer to her by slurs that are specifically
a lot of R
used.
bombs dropped in this one.
Lots.
And also they call her an idiot savant, which a lot of autistic people used to be called savants.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting, isn't it? I just guess the history of it goes a little farther than I think.
I think it's also really telling of the time, and like just how good the writing is and how well it holds up, because I think that like people just throw in like neurodivergent characters or minority characters just to throw in those people and just like make different like audiences happy, rather than making like, they also just make that identity the entire thing about that character. But like Rhonda is just so lovable and sweet and smart, and she's just, I don't know, and it's just like there's just this big innocence and like, I don't know, this like really likable quality about her. Like she is not, I don't know. I just love her character, and I hate the way that she was treated in this movie, but obviously she gets him back, and rightfully so. She like, it's just so good. The writing was just chef's kiss, I don't know. I just have a lot of like good feelings about her character.
I did quite enjoy it, yeah. And
she
I
was
like
the most likable character in the movie.
You enjoyed her a lot. Yeah, I think a lot, and her just being a kid, and obviously you kind of root for her. She's an underdog. Everybody else gets their comeuppance. One of the other kids seemed to take a liking to her. Schrader, but it wasn't enough.
I think that, I mean, part of me has like this big worry that like, because growing up, I didn't realize that I was bullied until I got older, and then I was like,
me too.
Really funny. I like that though.
We're
That's
in
good.
The same spot.
Isn't that weird when you're like, oh, that was bullying?
Oh yeah, they didn't actually like talking to you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Because I mean, I'm weird. Obviously, I grew up being weird.
Strange.
That's just But like, I don't know. But I had like guys that I had crushes on, and then they would pretend to like me, and it's just so shitty. So it's another reason that I adore Rhonda, is like I understand like how that fucking feels, and like you really think that this person like might actually like you.
I think Schrader did though.
I think there was part of him that did, but I think that maybe he was ashamed of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's what it mostly was.
Yeah.
I think he was acting on guilt more than he actually liked anything.
I could see that.
From her. And I think what it was is that you can see this a lot with kids, but he sees that Rhonda genuinely has an interest in something, and he feels bad because he realizes like, oh, she likes to do something. We're taking advantage of her, so he tries to make her feel better by being like, oh, I like your pumpkins. And then he feels bad that she genuinely gets hurt, and he's like, oh, I need to take care of her. But ultimately, he still did the prank.
He's still just as shitty as his friends are.
Yeah.
But fuck that Macy kid, right? Oh, she's a little bitch. But like, we all know those kinds of kids growing up.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the ones who are just like so outwardly mean to you, and you're like, what did I do to you just by existing?
And also like just seeing the dynamic of the bullies, like, you know, there it was like a ringleader and everybody else kind of followed, but like they weren't all there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like most of the characters, like she was really the only one that like dead set mean one, and the other ones were just following her basically.
And at first I really liked what they were going to do. Like they used to seem like they were going to actually do an offering, because that is a, you know, an ancient tradition with Halloween. Like you like light pumpkins, you have offerings, you offer food. Like back in the day, they used to do human sacrifices, you know, but we've come a long way. But like so many different things to just honor the dead. And they're like, they tell the story and you're like, oh wow, that's a really nice gesture. Fucking no. She's out for herself because they want to bully this young like kid in their neighborhood that is neurodivergent. So it's just...
I enjoyed that one. That one was probably my second favorite one.
Yeah, I thought it was just really, really sweet when the revenge finally took on, and you know, you'd actually like at first you think that, oh my God, it's the kids from the school bus, and then you actually come to find out it wasn't at first. It's them playing this horrible, horrible prank, which I would have been more afraid that she died rather than anything. They're like I thought when I first watched it, I was so scared that she was gonna die, and I was like, are you kidding me? She did not deserve this at all. This is so upsetting. But then when she wakes up, comes back, and then she like gets scared and goes back to where like the little elevator kind of thing was, and then the actual like school bus kids like come back as zombies. Oh, so good.
You know, there is something to that, I will say, about like characters that don't deserve to die dying.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it does give a little bit of levity. Like I'm thinking about in Harry Potter, there's like a ghost in the bathroom in there who wasn't necessarily deserving of death, but they made her into like this like a personality filled charming character.
Yeah.
And so even if it was the case for here, like where if Rhonda did die, I would like to think that there would be, you know, with her connection with Halloween, that something would come out of that.
Right. And I think it works out. I kind of wonder, like, so if Sam is this like a keeper of Halloween, making sure like things are, you know, going the way they're supposed to go, and you know he has killed people physically, but like I wonder if like there is some kind of supernatural element where like he's like he just like fucking snaps and he's like do your thing, babes, do your thing, cuz. But like to like the little zombie kids.
Maybe. Well, it does seem like their thing did work. That's what my interpretation, that the pumpkins and setting them out did resurrect these kids.
That would be.
Yeah, I think that's what the director might have intended, because otherwise, why had Mr. Krieg made it this far?
Yeah, like why hadn't they gotten zombified and gone after him earlier?
Ugh. But yeah, I don't know. I just love this movie so much. I can't say enough good things about it. Like it's just been so good to me.
Something I will say, that this is new for me.
Okay.
This is new for me. And so we've covered a lot of franchises and a lot of movies so far in our podcast, and there is sex in several of the franchises.
Yeah.
In Evil Dead, in Texas Chainsaw. I saw a little bit, but not necessarily, not in a good way, in a very, very, very bad way.
Oh yeah. Very, very bad way.
And so I have seen a lot of imagery, you know, now knowing you, about horror films, and sex is a big component of it.
Always.
And this movie helped me appreciate it. And like, there is like something also about sexuality, but in confidence.
Yeah.
You know, of being like controlling of it yourself and like expressing it in like in your own light without it being like, I don't know, manufactured, I suppose, to somebody else's taste. And this movie did that so well. Where like you have these group of young women who are, you know, dressing provocatively for you thinking for other men, right?
Yeah.
And then when their thing is revealed, it's not for other men, it's for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and the explanation of this is that they're werewolves and they attract these people so they can feast on them, you know,
right.
eat
Yeah,
them.
they flipped the misogyny on its head.
Yeah, they did that.
It was so good.
I love that. And it gave me an appreciation of like, you know, Elvira as, you know, this figure. And like, I'm like, you know what? Sex and horror, I see the cross section and I respect it.
You know what's really cool about Elvira as well is that she recently, like within the last year or two, came out as gay, and all of these,
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
And all of these men were like, I can't believe I was attracted to her. I'm like, as if you had a chance, my guy.
Yeah,
She was made for the girls and the gays.
She was.
And what difference does it make?
Like literally same level as Dolly. Like
That's awesome.
She's just goth Dolly, and I love it. Like they're both like I want to see a movie. I think somebody's already said when they like talk about them being together, like Dolly and Elvira like joining forces to defeat evil or something.
Right.
I would
They
love
have
it.
similar humor all
They
the time,
do.
too.
It would be so good. This is Michael Dougherty's like baby, and it's one of my favorite movies like ever. I consider it. I mean, it's a Halloween horror film, but it also is just to me, it's the Halloween movie. Like I watched this one probably more than any other movie related to Halloween, just because it is just amazing.
Okay, yeah, it's a yearly repeat.
Did you expect the principal to be the hooded guy? By the way, I
No,
didn't.
but I like the
didn't
connection.
I didn't like expect it at all growing up.
Me
And I thought
neither.
it was really funny.
Yeah, but I do when he gets his comeuppance.
He does get his comeuppance, and it's really hilarious. And I love that they relate like her first kill to like her first time the whole time of the movie, because you're thinking like she's really only thinking about sex, my guy.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Which is very 2000s.
Very.
Like so, they immediately sold me. They completely got me with the twist. Like they couldn't have done it any better.
What did you think about Mr. Krieg? We haven't talked about him enough.
There's not really much of him. I think a lot of his storyline is mostly based on getting to see Sam in action,
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool. I think he looks really weird. The whole, killing the pumpkin, but I, reattach myself, it's interesting. The one thing I will say, what did his dog do?
Spike.
What did his
Spike?
What did he do to get hurt?
Well, we don't know if he actually got hurt.
We do hear some dog whines.
But I don't think he did actually get hurt,
because
though.
he was barking, and then he sounds like he got hurt, and then we
Right.
don't see him again for the rest of the movie.
That's a good point. I don't want to.
I'm gonna, in my mind, he didn't die.
Yeah, he didn't
Sam gave him some dog-friendly candy, because the dog can't do anything wrong.
If I were to ever interview Michael Dougherty,
Yeah.
that's what I would ask him. Like, what's up with the dog? Like, is he okay?
Yeah, I want to know if the dog's okay. And I also want to know, did Mr. Krieg actually intend to kill... Because in my brain, he intended to kill the kids, but I don't think he intended to kill them in this way. He, like, had chains. Why would he chain them?
Oh, the kids on the bus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah, why would
that's
he
another
have
good question
Why
to
would
ask.
he have
Because-
unchained them?
Yeah.
Too. Like, he easily could have just jammed the gas pedal.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't know.
why was he handing out candy if he was just going to kill him?
I think he was just trying to do, like, a little good gesture before killing them to make himself feel a little bit better about it. But, like, obviously the parents pulled this... Which is so shitty of the parents in the story as well.
I feel like they're worse.
They're absolutely worse. They pile all their money together and they're like, get rid of our little secret. Like, fuck you. I'm sorry. Just because your child has special needs does not mean that they are not worthy of living a good life. It's so infuriating. I'm so glad that these kids get their revenge because, again, chef's kiss. I also love that there's this horror movie includes that and has like a redemption story, like, you know what I mean? Or like a good revenge like story. Like, it's just really nice because I don't feel like there's a lot of movies that have that. They really like to play on those kinds of like archetypes and tropes, but like have no like positive reward at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But this one does, and I think it's really daring, especially for horror.
Daring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do think that, like, if anybody was to get revenge in here, it'd be that. Like, and that as well as, the whole revenge of Rhonda. Not opening the door to all the bullies that she had.
That was the best thing she ever did. She was like, no.
And she got the key too, like she was gonna open it or something.
She did, and they deserve it. I don't care. Fuck them kids again. I hate kids a lot of the time, but I also love kids. So actually, I don't know.
I would have grabbed onto the bottom of the cage.
Do you think that would have worked?
Yes, definitely.
Nah, they deserved it. But yeah, that's Trick or Treat at its finest. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. What would you rank this if you could give it like a letter grade, I guess?
A letter grade? I liked the film. It took me a while to like it, though.
Really?
Yes. Like I said, I struggled really hard with the tone. I'm not used to like these twisted things. So like the humor did not land on me at all. I was like, oh my gosh, he just killed a kid?
Yeah, especially not at first.
Oh God, I love the whole twist when you think that he's like, hey Dad, can you help me carve the jack-o'-lantern? but don't forget to help me with the eyes. And then it's actually a kid's head. So fucking cool. Loved it.
I know.
I want to own that prosthetic head.
I eventually understood. Like it took me a while to understand. Like, okay, there are children involved here. This movie is meant to have, like, I forgot what the term that you used earlier, but an air of levity, an air of like innocence. Like this is for fun. You know, it's not super serious. Yeah. But it's hard for me to know that when, like, the dad's holding a knife and it looks like he's about to kill his son. Ugh. And I think my brain just thinks about real life too much. And I think of child predators and I think of all these awful real life things. Yeah. And so that I need to figure out a way to suspend all that. So all that being said, I think if I were to assign a letter grade to this, it'd be a little bit difficult. Speaking generously, I give it a B.
A B?
Yeah. In my heart, it's a C. But, now after our conversation that we've had today, and learning more about like the spirit of Halloween and all the passion and love that Michael Dougherty gave into the movie and creating this character and Sam Hain, I've moved up to a B.
Okay. Follow-up question for you.
Okay.
How excited would you be about us Trick or Treat 2? Would you be really excited to see it?
I'm super fascinated, especially like your pitch. You should pitch it to Michael Dougherty. I would love to see a Rhonda in her 20s.
Me freaking too, because Sam Todd is still around. Yeah. She's still I think she's still acting. I hope so. But she does go to conventions. I would love to absolutely meet her.
I don't even think it would need to be like another anthology. I could take either that story or the werewolf story, even if it was just a spinoff. I would enjoy it.
That's true. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Michael Dougherty, hire us as your writers. Just kidding. You're probably good enough to write it yourself. Bailey, what would you rate it? I'm curious.
Okay, I was gonna tell you my rating regardless if you asked me. I would give it an A if it didn't have as long of a throw up scene.
That's fair. I get that.
But so I think I have to knock it down to B territory just because I don't know how many times I'm gonna be able to rewatch it. Because of that scene in particular. Right. But otherwise, at first, like Frank, I didn't really know how much I was going to like it. I couldn't really figure out what the kind of tone was. I didn't know what to expect. Because in my mind, these movies are either 100% horror or 100% like fun and whimsy. And this is literally a mix of the two, and I didn't know how to understand it at first.
It's like it's like, when you have movies like Hocus Pocus that are like, children friendly, this one kind of gives you that vibe of thinking it's going to be that way, but then they also have like decapitated children.
Yeah.
So it is a mix.
Yeah, and I thought like maybe it's going to be along the lines of like Gremlins or something where it's still like kind of scary, but it's like a kid's movie. I thought it was going to be kind of like that. It's not. But the longer I sit away from it, the more I'm like, you know what? I did actually really enjoy the movie.
Me too. That's really very relatable.
It.
Yeah.
It just took me a minute to kind of figure it out.
And I think this movie would also be more enjoyable on rewatches now that I know what to expect.
For me, of course, A+, if I could, because I just love this movie so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's Trick or Treat in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Follow us on all our social media at Fright Pod. We're also launching a new channel, by the way, everybody.
New channel
called Fright Risk. Our first video on there is ranking the top 10 saw traps that we just covered on the last season of the podcast.
Follow along with us as we do more holiday themed movies. Yeah. But also, what else are we doing?
We're also covering a bear-based horror franchise game turned into a movie called Five Nights at Edwards. And we're excited to watch it. The movie's coming out this Halloween, and we're going to cover it. If you guys like FNAF, check it out, please. We're excited to watch the movie. At least I am. We also played the video game.
We will be also covering another Michael Dougherty fan favorite called Krampus. So follow us along the holidays. And yeah, stay safe out there. Have a happy, haunted Halloween.
Yeah. Remember to check your candy.
Check your candy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa. Produced by me, Bailey B. Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.